Hi everybody, I'm Fiona, and next week I want to go drifting, but to go drifting I need to finish fixing the drift ute, and there's only really one thing that I need to do. Everything else beyond that is optional, although there are things I would like to do. But the one thing I need to do is to remount my e-brake or my hydro handle and master cylinder. Last drift event, and I'll just show you what with a little clip how it was. Last event, that handle setup worked brilliantly. It did work, so the design was good on that level, but the design was poor in the sense that the bracket I made to mount it on is only flimsy, and the handle went left and right almost as much as it came back towards me. The other issue was that it was a very long handle, so it was a long throw to get that grip, which does mean leverage, which is not a bad thing, but I didn't feel that I needed that. Now that I've been drifting one time, I want to firm it up so that it doesn't move. I also want to reposition it slightly so it's in a better spot. I want a shorter handle. The other thing that I did wrong with the first one was that the rear feeder for the master cylinder for the hydro leaked. My fault again in that I stripped the thread by trying to over tighten that. My bad. So this cylinder, this handle, this whole thing is now junk after one event. I'll do something with it. Maybe I'll make my my console sim handle out of it. Anyway, out with the old. In with the new. This is the new handle. This is also an eBay handle, but first of all, the handle is shorter and more solid. It doesn't have any left-right movement in the handle itself. Plus, the lines that I've had made up for this, which obviously are already plumbed in, because the metal is actually a softer metal rather than the steel lines I had, you don't have to wind it in quite as much, which makes for a better seal on the cast piece, which is the master cylinder. So I'm just going to join them up at the other ends of the line. So that, I mean, it's just a better all up design. Alright, so we'll get into the cabin. You can see I have removed everything from the tunnel, and what I've done quite literally with my piece of cardboard here is I've made sense of 4 bolt holes that are part of the factory, 2 here and 2 at the front, and I'm going to start with those when I cut my piece of plate out. Obviously I need to cut a hole for the gear shift boot. I've been placing that in 5th because in 5th that'll be as close to the hydro as I'm happy to go with. I've just drawn a little box here where I believe the hydro would end up, although after making just that piece of cardboard, the hydro seems to be still a bit further forward than that, but that's a good start. And then I have just a piece on the side which I'll cut out and weld on separately, I think. Get those on and we can go from there. First revision. The plate fits in reasonably on the two. You can't quite see them, but the 2 bolts in the front. The ones at the back are just slightly out, so that's okay. I'll just mark those accordingly with my pen, and then I can expand the hole in that direction a little bit. Make that work. Obviously the boot I cut smaller, but it does look pretty central, so I'll cut that bigger as is. Everything else seems to be roughly appropriately cleared for now. So we'll take the plate back and tidy it up a bit more. Alright, so I've spent a bit of time cutting up this plate. Mostly fits now, so I just thought I'd show you where we're at. What we've done, if you can look there, I've bolted the plate on using the 4 locator plates. There's 2 at the front, 2 at the rear. Cut the hole out nice and wide for the gear stick, along with clearances around the side. I've placed the hydro where I want it to be. It's got appropriate clearance at the front. And then I've just traced all around it in every possible spot and location. So we can now start working towards cutting out some holes and bolting this down. It's taking a while, but we'll get there. I'm only up to my 3rd cutting disc. Okay, so a little bit of an update. My piece of 5mm plate with the 4 factory mounting positions, 2 at the front, 2 at the rear there. And that plate then extends over here where the hydro sits flush on the side. That is actually really solid, which is good and way better than the old one was, but there is still a little bit of flex in there. So to further increase the strength, what I've done is I've just made a little plate, a couple of holes there. I'm going to put that up, it might be a little hard to see, but up under here as a bit of an additional strength. What I'm going to do is actually bolt that in first and then just weld that plate to the underside of the other plate. And I'll pull it all apart, tidy it up, give it a coat of paint. Alright, so there's that plate, all bare, edges taken off. I've got that little leg that I welded on for strength and support. Okay, so it did take most of the afternoon, although I didn't only do that, but that's my 5mm plate made of mild steel with supporting leg, all welded together and painted, but that's still wet, and that's it's going to take a little while to dry. Comparing that to the 2mm plate that I made first time round, you can probably understand that it's a little bit more solid. But that's still wet, so at this point in time, I really am under pressure to get to the drifting event next weekend. I will push through during the week. Once this dries, I'll reassemble it, because that's all it is, it's reassembly. I need to run a couple of hydraulic lines and bleed the hydro brake, but that's not a big job. And the trailer bearing, I have had a look at it. I'm going to have to pull it apart, so that's another job I need to try and get done during the week. Next Saturday I'll be packing up and going, or I won't be. So unfortunately you're going to have to wait and find out. But while that's wet, that's going to be all from me today. I'll see you next time. Bye.